Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The illusion of control. Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind rushes to fix what breaks? A plan collapses, a relationship fades, a door closes, and instinctively we scramble to rebuild the same shape again, as if returning to what was will somehow protect us from what is. It's almost automatic, the human urge to patch, to repair, to restore. But beneath that urgency hides a subtle fear, the fear of change, the terror of uncertainty. We are taught from childhood that stability is safety. That a predictable routine, a steady income, a permanent relationship, are the foundations of a successful life. We cling to that idea so tightly that when reality shifts, as it inevitably does, we feel not only discomfort but shame, as though instability were a personal failure. Society conditions us to believe that control equals competence, that the more we manage and schedule and secure, the better we are at living. Yet life, indifferent and wild, moves according to rhythms far older than our plans. So when the ground trembles, when the familiar dissolves, we fight. We resist. We force life to stay as it was. We call this normality, but what we really mean is certainty. We attempt to restore patterns that perhaps were already suffocating us. Like someone trying to reinflate a balloon that has already burst, we exhaust ourselves in the effort to deny impermanence. Pause for a moment and ask, where does this yearning to restore come from? Why do we assume that going back is always better than going forward? Why do we think the old structure is safer than the unknown horizon? We chase stability because we mistake it for peace, but the two are not the same. Stability is external, peace is internal. Stability depends on conditions remaining the same, peace blooms when we stop demanding that they must. Alan Watts once said that resistance to change is the root of all suffering. He wasn't speaking in metaphors. He meant that the pain we feel when life moves beyond our control comes not from change itself, but from our refusal to flow with it. He compared human beings to waves in the ocean, unique, yes, but inseparable from the sea that births and dissolves them. The moment a wave believes it should remain frozen mid-crest, the agony begins. We've been conditioned for centuries to fear what moves and worship what stays still. Our religions praise permanence. Our economies are built on growth without end. Our education teaches us to define, label, and contain. But existence doesn't obey those walls. It shifts, it breathes, it dies, it begins again. Trying to freeze it is like holding your breath to stop the wind. The truth is uncomfortable. We are addicted to control because we equate it with meaning. If we can control something, we believe we can understand it. And if we understand it, we believe we can be safe. But meaning, like water, slips through the fingers that clutch too tightly. The harder you grip, the less you hold. There is, however, another way to meet life's chaos, a way that doesn't depend on fixing, forcing, or explaining. The Japanese call it Yūgen. It's a word that refuses translation, a concept meant to be felt rather than defined. Yūgen is the beauty that hides behind form, the faint echo of temple bells in the fog, the curve of moonlight on still water, the silence between two notes of music. It is the moment when something moves you so deeply that words would diminish it. To live with Yūgen is to allow mystery to exist without dissecting it. It is to sense the vastness behind the visible world and to accept that not everything meaningful can be measured or controlled. Yūgen teaches us that there is wisdom in what escapes, that the unseen often carries more truth than the visible. Perhaps the reason we suffer so deeply during times of change is not because life falls apart, but because we have forgotten how to appreciate what cannot be held together. We do not know how to feel without fixing, how to observe without reacting, how to let silence teach us. We fear the void so much that we keep filling it, with noise, with plans, with explanations, when in truth the void is not our enemy but our mirror. So, what are you trying to force back into place? What are you holding that no longer wants to stay? These questions are not accusations, they are invitations, to pause, to breathe, to see. Maybe what is falling apart was never yours to keep. Maybe it was life clearing space for what's next. Take a deep breath. Let the edges of your control soften. The journey doesn't begin with mastering the world, it begins with surrendering to its rhythm. Only then can you see that the dance of change has always been carrying you, even when you thought you were falling. Alan Watts and the Art of Letting Go. Imagine a man who looked at Western civilization and saw a mind spinning inside its own machinery, a culture obsessed with productivity, logic, and measurable progress, yet terrified of the simple act of being. That man was Alan Watts, a philosopher who never confined himself to classrooms or dogmas. He spoke not to impress the intellect but to awaken the soul. Born in England in 1915, Watts grew up with one foot in the Anglican tradition and another in the restless curiosity that would one day lead him to Zen monasteries. He crossed the ocean to America and became the translator between two worlds, the Western hunger for certainty and the Eastern ease with mystery. Long before mindfulness became a trend, Watts saw that modern man was spiritually exhausted, choking on control, drowning in definitions. He said that the Western mind treats life as a problem to be solved rather than a dance to be danced. We slice experience into categories, good and bad, success and failure, gain and loss, then spend our years trying to live on one side of that equation. But the rhythm of existence is not binary, it's cyclical. Day yields to night, joy fades into sorrow, birth leans toward death. When we insist that happiness must be permanent, we declare war on the natural flow of things. In his lectures, Watts spoke like a poet disguised as a teacher. His voice rose and fell like the tide, weaving laughter into silence, reason into paradox. He said, the more we try to make sense of life, the less sense it makes, and then smiled as if to prove that wisdom begins where explanation ends. He invited people to step out of the cage of improvement, to stop forcing life to behave and start noticing how beautifully it misbehaves. To Watts, control was the modern disease. The Western dream of mastering nature, perfecting the self, conquering time, all of it, he said, was a fever of separation. We imagine ourselves apart from the world, like engineers tweaking a machine. But life is not machinery, it is a living pattern. You are not a stranger in the universe, he reminded. You are the universe, temporarily pretending to be a person. That sentence alone could free a lifetime of anxiety. Because if you are not outside life trying to steer it, then you are not failing when it changes course. You are the current, not the swimmer. You are the music, not the musician struggling to hit the note. Yet Watts was no ascetic preaching detachment. He loved wine, laughter, conversation. He celebrated paradox, that enlightenment could coexist with joy, that depth could laugh at itself. He said the true spiritual life was not about escaping the world but about realizing that you were never apart from it. The goal was not to reach nirvana as a destination, but to see that nirvana is now, this breath, this heartbeat, this impermanent moment unfolding without needing your permission. In many ways, Watts anticipated the mental burnout that defines our century. He saw how technology would amplify our craving for certainty, how social comparison would turn life into a performance. You can't get there from here, he warned, because you're already there. The constant self-improvement industry, he predicted, would only deepen dissatisfaction. Trying to control your mind with your mind, he said, is like trying to bite your own teeth. Instead, he offered a radical alternative: let go. Not as surrender to despair but as participation in the grand improvisation of existence. Let go of needing to know. Let go of resisting what comes. Let go of the fantasy that you are the conductor of the symphony rather than one of its notes. He used simple metaphors to reveal profound truths. Life, he said, is like water. If you try to grasp it, it slips away, but if you open your hands, it stays. Or like dancing, you don't dance to reach the final step, you dance because each step is the point. Control ruins rhythm. Anxiety is the refusal to move with the music. What's called for a return to presence, to the raw experience beneath labels. Stop measuring the moment, he urged, and start living it. He believed that wisdom wasn't hidden in sacred texts but woven into everyday gestures, in laughter, in nature, in the taste of tea, in the awareness of breathing. And this, unknowingly, brought him close to Yūgen, the Japanese reverence for the unseen. His philosophy shimmered with the same quiet depth, an appreciation for the subtle, the transient, the ineffable. Watts didn't try to define the mystery, he let it define him. He turned paradox into poetry and confusion into clarity by accepting that they were never enemies. He reminded us that to live fully is to participate in uncertainty. To trust the movement instead of resisting it. To see that surrender is not the end of freedom, but its beginning. The art of letting go, in Watts's vision, was the highest intelligence, not giving up on life, but giving in to its music. The hidden light of Yūgen. There are some words that refuse to be translated, words that shimmer between meanings, evoking sensations rather than definitions. Yūgen is one of them. It is a Japanese concept older than most nations, whispered through centuries of poetry, theater, and art, born in the mist of Zen Buddhism. Even the Japanese masters said, do not try to explain it. To define Yūgen is already to lose it. Yūgen is the beauty that hides behind appearances. It is the hint of something vast behind the visible, the suggestion of depth behind simplicity. It is the sound of a single bell echoing through fog, the slow fall of a leaf in autumn, the pause between two notes of a flute when silence itself becomes music. It is the space in a painting left deliberately empty so that the viewer's soul can wander inside. Yūgen is not the spectacle, it is the shadow that makes the light meaningful. In the 12th century, the masters of No theater used Yūgen as their guiding principle. Their stage was nearly bare, a single pine tree, a bridge, a few gestures. The power of the performance did not lie in what was shown but in what was suggested. Every movement implied a story larger than words could hold. A raised sleeve might contain a lifetime of longing. A brief silence might express the sorrow of generations. This, they said, is Yūgen, to evoke the infinite through the minimal. But Yūgen is not only an aesthetic, it is a philosophy of being. It teaches that the world's deepest truths live in subtlety. In Western thought, beauty often means clarity and brilliance, the radiant, the complete, the fully revealed. In Yūgen, beauty is half hidden, half known. It is the moon behind clouds, not the sun in the sky. It is the fleeting, the uncertain, the almost. And precisely because it cannot be possessed, it awakens awe. Alan Watts, though he rarely used the word Yūgen, lived entirely in its spirit. When he said that life is like music, that its value lies not in reaching the last note but in savoring every measure, he was describing Yūgen without naming it. He saw that meaning does not live in explanation but in experience. He urged us to look beyond logic into the shimmer of the present moment, to perceive the sacred that hides in the ordinary, the glint of sunlight on water, the laughter that fades before we can analyze it, the quiet pulse that continues beneath every loss. Yūgen also means reverence for impermanence. It accepts that nothing endures, and finds in that transience a secret grace. The Japanese tea ceremony embodies this spirit. Every cup of tea is unique, the steam, the scent, the silence will never repeat. To notice this is not to mourn impermanence but to celebrate it. The awareness that something will vanish makes it precious. Yūgen is that awareness turned into art, the art of seeing the eternal in the passing moment. This stands in gentle defiance of modern life, which demands clarity, efficiency, proof. We want definitions, labels, explanations for everything. But mystery has its own intelligence. In Yūgen, not knowing is not ignorance, it is openness. It is the humility to let life reveal itself on its own terms. When you stare at the night sky, sensing an immensity you cannot name, that is Yūgen. When you pause before a painting and cannot say why it moves you, that too is Yūgen. It is the soul recognizing its own depth in what it beholds. Watts once said that trying to understand reality with the rational mind is like trying to catch the wind with a net. The harder you try, the more it slips through. To live wisely is not to tighten the net, but to feel the wind. This is Yūgen, to participate in mystery rather than conquer it. To let wonder be the answer. Yūgen asks of us a simple but radical act, to slow down, to see, to feel. To replace judgment with observation, explanation with attention. It invites us to walk through life as if through a sacred garden, aware that every shadow, every silence, every breath belongs to something greater than ourselves. It is the meeting point of fragility and eternity. And when we begin to live with that awareness, we discover that the world has been whispering to us all along. We just needed to listen more softly. So the next time beauty passes you by, a fleeting sunset, a stranger's kindness, a melody fading into night, do not grasp it. Bow to it. Let it move through you like wind through leaves. That trembling in your chest, that quiet ache that words cannot reach, that is Yūgen. It does not want to be captured, it wants to be felt. And in that feeling lies the doorway to everything we call sacred. The weight of resistance. Resisting change is like trying to hold sand in a clenched fist. The harder you grip, the faster it slips away. Yet this is precisely what most of us do when life begins to transform. Something ends, someone departs, a phase dissolves, and instinctively, we reach back, trying to restore what once was. We attempt to glue the mirror's fragments together, hoping to see the same reflection again, forgetting that even if it holds, the image has already changed. This resistance does not protect us, it imprisons us. It stiffens the soul, tenses the body, and clouds the mind. Anxiety, insomnia, the constant hum of restlessness, these are not random afflictions but symptoms of spiritual friction. They are the sound of the ego grinding against the flow of life. We call this stress, but it is, more accurately, an argument with impermanence, an exhausting attempt to stop the tide. The truth is simple, though rarely easy to accept: not everything broken should be mended, not every ending requires repair. Some doors close because they are meant to. Some stories finish because their wisdom has already been given. But because we fear emptiness, we mistake endings for mistakes. We mourn what is leaving instead of trusting what might be arriving. We are terrified of the pause between breaths, that still, silent space where life renews itself. Alan Watts saw this struggle with remarkable clarity. He said we suffer because we believe we are separate from the universe, as though we stand outside existence, commanding it from a distance. But a wave cannot instruct the ocean, it moves as the ocean moves. When we forget this, we start swimming against the current, exhausting ourselves in defiance of our own nature. Watts's question was simple yet profound: why do we resist the rhythm that already includes us? The answer is fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of falling into the unknown. Fear of not knowing who we are without the identities we built around certainty. We mistake control for strength, but it is only tension disguised as discipline. True strength is flexibility, the ability to bow without breaking, to bend with the wind and still remain rooted. This is why surrender is not the same as giving up. To surrender is to release the illusion that you were ever the driver of this vast unfolding. It is to recognize that life has always been carrying you, even through chaos. It is like loosening a rope that has been pulled too tight around your own neck, the first breath of relief, the first taste of freedom. When you stop fighting change, reality ceases to be your enemy. It becomes your teacher. Every fall, every loss, every silence starts to show its hidden face, not punishment, but passage. The end of a relationship becomes the beginning of understanding. The loss of stability becomes the seed of depth. Even grief, when seen with open eyes, reveals its quiet generosity, it clears space for truth. But resistance blinds us to all this. It shrinks our perception until all we can see is what we've lost. It turns the living present into a museum of memory. And so we become haunted not by ghosts of the past, but by our refusal to let them rest. We confuse nostalgia with meaning, clinging to what no longer serves us because we are too afraid to stand in the emptiness that follows release. Watts would say, "You are not falling into emptiness, you are falling into fullness." He compared letting go to floating in deep water. Panic makes you sink, but if you relax, the water holds you. The universe, he said, operates the same way. When you trust it, it supports you. When you resist it, you drown in your own struggle. The beauty of Yūgen emerges here once more. Yūgen is not loud triumph but quiet acceptance, the grace to see meaning in what dissolves. It does not demand clarity, it welcomes mystery. It does not grasp at the world, it allows the world to move through it. To live with Yūgen is to stop insisting that life explain itself. It is to let the wind blow through the open hands of the heart. When resistance finally softens, something new appears, a silence that is not empty but alive. It hums beneath everything, the same pulse that beats in the trees, the tides, the stars. You begin to feel it again, that invisible rhythm you fought for so long. You realize it was never chaos. It was choreography. And in that realization, the weight lifts. You don't have to hold the world together anymore. You were never meant to. All you have to do is listen, and allow. Living the mystery. Most of us live as though we are chasing something just beyond reach, a perfect plan, a permanent answer, a version of life that finally stays still. We think peace will come once everything makes sense, once the puzzle is solved, once the world stops moving. But life has never promised us that. The secret, as Alan Watts gently revealed, is that there is no finish line. The meaning of life is not hidden at the end of the path, it is the path, twisting, unpredictable, luminous, and alive. When we cling to certainty, we close our eyes to wonder. When we try to fix life, we forget to feel it. The art of living begins where explanation ends. The dance of existence is not meant to be analyzed, it is meant to be danced. Every step, even the missteps, are part of the choreography. Watts said, "You don't look at a painting to find meaning in one corner, you look at the whole thing." And life is like that. Its meaning is the whole, not the parts. So, what does it mean to live the mystery? It means to allow life to unfold without demanding that it justify itself. It means to replace the search for certainty with the practice of presence. It means to trust that the river knows its own direction. When you begin to see in this way, you realize that even chaos has its rhythm, even silence has its music. The mind wants conclusions, the heart wants participation. To live the mystery is to choose the latter. Alan Watts often compared life to water. Try to hold it, and it slips away. Open your hands, and it stays. We exhaust ourselves trying to control the current, not realizing that the river was never asking for control, only for flow. Letting go doesn't mean apathy, it means partnership. It means moving with life instead of against it. It's the difference between fear and faith, between survival and surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is trust. It is understanding that the universe is intelligent beyond logic, that there is an order we can sense but never define. Watts called this the wisdom of insecurity, a freedom found only when we stop trying to make everything safe. He said, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you'll sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. The philosophy of Yūgen lives in this same breath. Yūgen doesn't seek to solve the mystery but to live inside it with reverence. It finds beauty not in clarity, but in shadow. It finds meaning not in permanence, but in the quiet grace of transience. When you begin to live with Yūgen, you see that imperfection is not the opposite of beauty, it is beauty. The unfinished, the uncertain, the fleeting, all are sacred expressions of life's vast intelligence. To practice Yūgen is to slow down enough to notice the invisible. To find holiness in a beam of dust drifting through sunlight, in a stranger's brief smile, in the moment the day fades into night. It's not grand or loud or dramatic. It's simple, subtle, and profoundly alive. It asks only that you be here, truly here, long enough to feel life happening through you, not around you. And when you begin to see the world this way, everything changes. Silence stops being emptiness and becomes fullness. Absence stops feeling like loss and becomes space. Endings stop being tragedies and become transitions. You realize that every death, of a season, a dream, a relationship, is just the earth turning, making room for what's next. This is the essence of the mystery, that you were never separate from it. You were never a visitor in the universe, you are the universe, momentarily aware of itself. The same energy that moves the stars moves through your breath. The same intelligence that spins galaxies beats in your chest. There is no boundary between you and the world, only the illusion of control, gently fading like mist at dawn. Watts believed that enlightenment was not an achievement but a recognition. A sudden awareness that the search is over because you were never lost. The dance was never waiting for your permission to begin. You were already dancing. And so, the invitation remains, stop forcing life back to what it was. Let it become what it is trying to be. Don't chase meaning, embody it. Don't demand answers, experience the question. Life is not a riddle to solve, but a song to sing. If this truth touches something inside you, whisper it softly, I am ready to let go. Because that sentence is not surrender, it is freedom. It is the moment you stop swimming against the current and finally feel the river carry you home.